Welcome. We've heard a lot these days about the importance of social distancing. We've heard about the importance of staying at least 6 feet away from one another. We've heard about limiting the capacity of our gatherings to about half capacity or less. But today I'm going to talk to you about another kind of social distancing. Today I'm going to talk about staying away from people who just aren't good for you. Because let's face it, some relationships are toxic. They might be harmful to our bodies, to our souls, or even to our sense of self-worth. Now, I suppose that a disclaimer is in order, because when I speak of staying away from people who aren't good for you, I'm not talking about us withdrawing into a Christian ghetto in which we only are around people who are just like us. Of course, if you're never out in the world, you cannot influence the world, which is badly in need of Christian influence. While the Apostle Paul in 1 Corinthians 5, verses 9 and 10 warned against associating with Christians who practice things like greed and fornication and idolatry, he said he wasn't saying at all, you see, he added his own disclaimer. He said, I'm not saying at all that you stay away from everyone in the world who commits these sins, because otherwise you would have to leave this world. So again, I'm not talking about isolation from the world, but I'm talking about not getting too deeply involved with the wrong kind of people. I'm also advising walking away from or abandoning toxic relationships that are no good for you. There are people who tend to just bring out the worst in you. They know just how to push your buttons. You are like oil and water. There are people who bring you down or influence you to feel badly about yourself. There are ultra-critical or verbally abusive people in your life, most likely. What kind of relationships does the Bible tell us to avoid? And if you're looking for advice on any one of a number of topics, the best place to go for that inspired advice is often the book of Proverbs. Proverbs 13:20 says this, "Walk with the wise and become wise, for a companion of fools suffers harm." We'll look at the positive side of this in the later part of the sermon, but right now we're talking about negative relationships, toxic people. And here we learn that being a companion of fools leads you to suffer harm. Walk with the wise, whose wisdom might rub off on you. Don't walk with fools, whose foolishness is sure to rub off on you. It's the person who takes shortcuts to get what they want who is really the fool. Proverbs routinely contrasts the wise person with the fool, and the fool is most often that immoral or ungodly person. It's a person who, as I said, wants to take shortcuts. A fool is out for whatever comes easily. Authors Douglas Stewart and Gordon Fee, in their book, How to Read the Bible Book by Book, say that a fool wants easy money and easy sex. The fool isn't willing to work or invest in one's own self-improvement. The fool isn't willing to invest in relationships. The fool isn't willing to be patient and wait. But the fool prefers to use people in fulfilling short-term desires. The fool tends to think that the world owes him something and that he deserves what everyone else has. Depending upon how big a fool one is, one might even rob, steal, overpower, manipulate, or destroy to get what he wants. The fool blames others. Whatever misfortune befalls him, he blames others for that misfortune. He often denies his foolish behavior. We become like the people we hang out with. The motivational speaker known as Charlie Tremendous Jones once said that you're going to be the same person that you are right now 5 years from now, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. So not only by actions, but by other people's words are we most influenced. See, peer pressure is not just a teenage problem. Peer pressure is something that even adults can fall into. And if we walk with the wise, we grow wise. But a companion of fools suffers harm. And it's because in becoming like the fool, you reap the fool's rewards. And most fools die lonely, because they've already run off all of their friends, all of their family. No one wants anything to do with them anymore, because who wants to hang out with someone who is ultra-critical? Who wants to be around someone who is a self-centered individual? Who wants to hang around with someone who will merely use them? Who wants to share in the fool's plight of incarceration or disease or even death? Being a fool guarantees negative outcomes. The second phrase of this proverb says, "A companion of fools suffers harm," which Eugene Peterson rendered in the Message translation, "Hang out with fools and watch your life fall apart." A further warning is found in Proverbs 14:7, which says, "Stay away from a fool, for you will not find knowledge on their lips." The fool is naturally giving bad advice. Some of the guys I used to hang out with in my pre-Christian days encouraged me to do wrong. Some of them took drugs, and they assured me that I did not know what I was missing. They tried to hook me up with women that they described as easy. Some of them even stole money or jewelry when the opportunity arose. But I somehow escaped those temptations because I could see the folly in them. I had seen people go to jail or be hospitalized or get social diseases. I wanted no part of that. In the break room at work, I would often hear guys talk about their latest sexual conquest or their latest drug score. And I would hear a lot of profanity and dirty language, and so I got to where I would not take my breaks in the break room. Instead, I would go outside and sit in the lawn chair to take my breaks, and that was much lonelier. But after having become a Christian, I found that I wanted less and less to do with people who did not share my values. And yes, there is a time to share the gospel when you can. You should not immediately isolate yourself from everyone, but when people make no effort to listen and continue to glory in the wrong kind of life, there comes a time to distance yourself. As Proverbs says, "Stay away from a fool. You will not find knowledge on his lips." What you'll find is ungodly advice, profanity, and stupidity. Now, at what point do you know when it's time to walk away? While the second phrase says, "For you will not find knowledge on his lips," the King James has it, "When thou perceives not in him the lips of knowledge." So, when you start to perceive that this person isn't steering you right, but encouraging bad things, that is when you turn away. Stay away from those who prove themselves to be fools. And if we start associating with fools, we become fools. And if we keep associating with fools, we remain fools. But someone might have a dilemma. Someone might say, "Well, if I stop associating with fools, I won't have any friends left." Oh, really? Are all your friends fools? Well, if they are, I think you need new friends. Are your friends really fools? Proverbs 18:24 says, "One who has unreliable friends soon comes to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." The term unreliable friends is used in the 2011 revision of the New International Version, and it accurately contrasts between the fair weather friend and the friend who sticks closer than a brother. Some people might be fun to be around, but would they really stick by you when the chips are down? When your marriage or your health fails, or you lack the resources for recreational activity, are these so-called friends going to stick by you? Unreliable friends couldn't help you if they wanted to, because they're coming to ruin themselves. The 1984 version of the NIV rendered it as follows: "A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." One might argue that they must be doing something right if they have a lot of friends. And I know people who have maybe 10,000 Facebook friends. They collect them like stamps. And I'm not trying to depress anybody, but are all of these people truly friends? Some of them aren't even acquaintances. How many genuine friends does a person really have? Can anyone really have that many as 10,000 friends? There isn't enough lifetime to get around to that many people, to keep up with that many people. I limit my friends on Facebook mainly to people I either know personally or have had some significant communication with. But I don't go around just friending people I know nothing about. or accepting requests from a lot of strangers. There are just so many people I can get around to in one lifetime. Now, you may think that you have a lot of friends when in fact what you have is a lot of in-person acquaintances. But how many of those are truly friends? Again, I don't want to depress anyone, but the fact is, most of us have very few friends. Most of us have very few friends. That is, real friendships, because it takes time to build real relationships. But if you just have a few friends, then you have done well in this life, and especially if some of those would stick closer than a brother. And so it's clear that we're to choose our friends carefully. We are not to choose fools. We are to choose wise people to hang out with. And we're to walk away from toxic relationships. Relationships with very angry people can be toxic. Proverbs 22, 24, and 25 says, "Do not make friends with a hot-tempered person. Do not associate with one easily angered, or you may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared." And I must admit that anger is something I've struggled with and continue to do so, but some people, it seems, are like powder kegs, just waiting to explode and not even trying to diffuse themselves. They're angry about everything. They're mad at their boss. They're mad at their spouse. They're mad at the clerks who wait on them in the grocery store. If they go to church, they're mad at the leadership. They're going into every new experience with a wall up because they're just sure that someone is going to try to take advantage of them. They suspect that no one is genuinely well-meaning or trustworthy. And if you get too close to those who seem to thrive on their anger, you can get caught up in the fray when they lose control. You could be in the wrong place with them at the wrong time, and if they decide to get violent, you don't want to be anywhere around. You might even be wrongly accused because of their actions. Verse 25 says, "You may learn their ways and get yourself ensnared." Those who are constantly bitter and angry will rub off on you. They contribute to a negative attitude toward life and other people. Not that they aren't loved by God and do not need to be pointed in the direction of help, but we're not to put ourselves in situations of abuse or angry influence. In addition to fools, fair-weather friends, and hot-tempered people, we're to avoid those who are just plain wicked. Proverbs 24, 1 and 2 says, "Do not envy the wicked, do not desire their company, for their hearts plot violence, and their lips talk about making trouble." These people are always going around trying to cause some kind of disturbance. Notice the proverb doesn't say that they have acted upon it, but the intent is there. In their hearts they plot it. With their lips they talk about it. And maybe they've not acted upon those wicked thoughts, but it could just be a matter of time. The proverb says, "Do not desire their company." There are people that believers should simply avoid. We can love everyone, but we don't have to be friends with everyone. Some might be attracted to the wicked because maybe they appeal to our baser instinct. Maybe they have intentions about things that we've only fantasized about, but we know that the Scripture forbids. These people can influence us through words as well as actions. As we consider avoiding or walking away from toxic relationships, we might ask why anyone would fall into or stay in a toxic relationship. And a constant question that ministers, social workers, and law enforcement officials have is, why do so many women refuse to press charges against their abusive boyfriends or husbands? And why do these women so often go back to them? Well, it could be that they really love the guy, and they're under this delusion that he can change, that they can change him, and so they hope against hope that he will change. Perhaps they illogically blame themselves for his abusive behavior. Some of these people feel inferior to begin with. They're afraid that no one else will have them. Or maybe they depend upon the guy for a livelihood, which they pay for with routine black eyes and broken ribs. The behavior of one who stays with an abuser is likely rooted in some deep childhood trauma. And if we only knew how significant parental behavior affects our children, we would be far more careful parents. Why else might one desire the company of the wicked? It could be that some envy the wicked. If they're well off, it might stroke our ego to have them even acknowledge our existence. Some of the wicked seem to have everything. Perhaps they came through it by dishonest means. And being a part of their inner circle, because they're doing quite well, we think that maybe we have something to gain from it. Well, we could gain the whole world and still lose our soul. So do not envy the wicked. Do not desire their company. Down in verses 19 and 20, Proverbs 24 says, "Do not fret because of evildoers, or be envious of the wicked, for the evildoer has no future hope, and the lamp of the wicked will be snuffed out." The author of this proverb, to whom little had been revealed about the afterlife, was likely speaking about the bad end that fools typically come to in this world. And even if they seem happy, we don't see the tormented lives they live behind the scenes. They often crash and burn without leaving much of a legacy. And of course we know, looking back in hindsight, that the evildoer has no future hope for eternity. He can only anticipate judgment and condemnation. He can bring you down with him if you get too close. So there are certain types of friendships that we should not pursue. We're to stay away from fools, fake friends, hot-tempered and violent people, those who do violence and so on. But with what kind of people should we want to build relationships? With what kinds of people should we choose to hang out with? Well, the answer is wise people. As going back to 13:20, it says, "Walk with the wise and become wise." And who is wise? According to Proverbs, well, Proverbs 9:10 says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." The best friends are typically those who fear the Lord. Those who fear the Lord make the best friends. Those who care about what God thinks. Those who live to please Him. Wisdom in Proverbs is associated with purity of life, moderation, self-control, discipline, gentleness, restrained speech, lifelong learning, and hard work. And if you hang around with people who possess those qualities or have those desires, then you will learn from them just by watching them live. You will emulate their actions and heed their words. And that is to say that people who make the best friends are Christians. But how many of us have genuine Christian friends? How many of us actually see one another outside the formal assemblies? Do we do anything together other than church formalities? Do we do anything together in terms of socialization? Where do you spend most of your time? With whom do you spend most of your time? People inside the church or people outside the church? Some of us would do well to find better friends, at least for our close friends. And if we all work together, we can be better friends. Friends are those who build each other up. Friends are those who have loving and honest relationships. Friends are those who have positive things to say about you, but they also know when they can offer constructive criticism, which you would only accept from a friend. But then there are those who are toxic. There are those who tempt you. There are those who've never had a positive thing to say. Those who know how to push your buttons, those who violate your boundaries, who easily fly off the handle at you. And if that's the kind of people you're hanging out with, then you need some better friends. Don't stay in a relationship out of desperation or guilt. Don't guilt yourself into being around someone simply because they are related to you or because you've known them for a long time. Spend a bulk of your time with those who see the best in you and who bring out the best in you. You're not obligated to do life with those who bring you down spiritually or oppress you emotionally. Find the freedom to abandon toxic relationships. And work on getting to know your church family better. You may have more in common with them than you realize once you start comparing notes, and you may discover new interests as you form new acquaintances. But the friend who'll stick by in all circumstances is none other than Jesus. And if you haven't befriended him, you are completely missing out. Jesus is the best friend you'll ever have, and so we urge you as always to come to him now, to make the decision to repent of your sins, confess him as Lord, and enter into solidarity with him through baptism into his name. And we urge you not to put that off, and to do so as soon as you can. Have a great week.